This is a new excerpt of an interview that's been going around. This specifically is about Denis Villeneuve praising Timothée Chalamet's growth for Dune 2 specifically, and how he witnessed someone growing in front of his camera. So how he evolved from his performance in Dune 1 to the sequel. Some of his comments were really interesting and also contribute to what we can expect to see from the movie that's being hailed as an epic war film. So in the new GQ cover story about Chalamet's acting career and personal life, Denis Villeneuve was quoted, "Action-wise, I felt that he was much more trained than in part 1 and ready for the fighting sequences. I was impressed by his level of discipline for part 2. When you are the lead on a movie, there's a presence. The way you approach your work and your discipline will necessarily have a ripple effect on the rest of the crew. He was the first one on set, always ready, and I was super pleased and impressed with how Timothée really embraced that discipline and became, for me, a real leading actor on this film." So that's good to know that he is very dedicated. Timothée Chalamet is very dedicated to this role specifically. In a lot of interviews, when he is specifically talking about the source material, he's very passionate about it, about the story, and has really good insights into not just his own character, but the universe and the themes. He's really diving into it, and obviously that's approach is affecting his performance in a very positive way for the entire set. In part 1, the camera was capturing the performance of a teenager. I'm talking about the character, someone who was learning about the world and experiencing a new reality. The director commented on his original Dune film's tone, whereas Dune Part 2 will explore how Paul transitions from the boy to the man and becomes a leader, and even, I will say, a dark, charismatic, messianic figure. It was the first time that I witnessed someone growing in front of my camera. So that's exciting. He does have quite a bit of an evolution there. And I have been wondering how that's going to go, because it's going to pick up right after Dune Part 1 ended. So we're going to see that entire transition, I guess, and how that will take place, to see that from boy to man to this dark messianic leader. And I do wonder, it's still something I think about, how they're going to portray that passage of time to really feel that we've really steeped in this timeline, this story, and to really feel his maturity, I guess, to know that there's been a significant passage of time there. So I wonder how they're going to do that. And that was something that I always wondered about before, when I realized that they weren't going to end it before the 2-year time jump that takes place in the novel. Because before they were saying, well, there was a natural break in the story of Dune for them to split it, when they were talking, or people involved in the production were talking about that, where they were going to split it, indicated that yes, there was a point where they could, but then Denis Villeneuve decided against that it just didn't feel like that was the spot to break up that story there. And I kind of get what he was coming from, because once they join the Fremen, it is kind of this whole different path that he's on. And I think I recall a conversation that Denis said that he had with Timothée, and Timothée would ask him, am I Muad'dib yet? He said, no, not yet. That's in the next part. I thought it was interesting too, because I have another article that talks about something that would have affected Timothée Chalamet's performance. So Dune 2's Timothée Chalamet details the advice Tom Cruise gave him to prepare for the movie. So that actually makes sense to me when it comes to, especially because Denis Villeneuve specifically pointed out that Timothée was ready in terms of the fighting scenes. So there was definite growth when it came to that. And it makes sense if that came from Tom Cruise's advice, which, by the way, I don't know if it's mentioned in this article, but Timothée said somewhere that, I think it was in the GQ article somewhere, that he went and saw Top Gun Maverick, I think while they were shooting Dune 2 at the time, and he took everyone to go see it, and he saw it 8 times when it was playing. He loved that movie. Chalamet recently had occasion to discuss his role in the highly anticipated movie, Dune 2, revealing how a 2022 blockbuster helped inspire him, and how the star of that blockbuster reached out with some important career advice. Chalamet talked seeing Top Gun Maverick in the theater, discussed an email from Maverick himself filled with the names of stunt trainers that he might want to look up if he needs any help preparing for a future action role. So his remarks were, Top Gun was hugely inspiring to me last summer when we were making Dune. Some of the crew were kind of scoffing at going, but I just thought it was one of the greatest films I've ever seen. After I met Tom Cruise, right after finishing the first Dune, he sent me the most wonderfully inspiring email. He basically said, in old Hollywood, you would be getting dance training and fight training, and nobody is going to hold you to that standard today, so it's up to you. The email was like a war cry. So I thought that was very interesting. So it was right after Dune Part 1 is when he sent him that. It looks like it really made a difference in Chalamet's performance, according to Villeneuve. And I think that's really cool. And it's kind of sad to a degree because, yes, there was, in old Hollywood, all the stars used to be able to do it all, sing and dance, and as well as act and comedy and drama and very physical acting as well. All of these different talents kind of were just one facet of that. Nobody holds actors to that standard, I guess, anymore. So that makes it more exciting for me to know that Timothee Chalamet was very serious and wanted to portray that necessary physicality, especially in this part of the story of Dune. This is when he's already been on Arrakis for a significant amount of time and among the Fremen fighting. So yes, he's going to need to look like a hardened by the desert warrior.